I never imagined that Michael Tobias or MTD, like would make an instrument for me. That was just something that never crossed my mind.
Hi, and welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, then you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community, a lot of them over 50. And they are learning bass and having the time of their life playing the music that they love. You should come join them and see what it's like to experience that incredible transformation for yourself. Remember, you're never too old to groove. So let's play bass. My guest this week is Kai Kurosawa. Kai has been playing bass since he was 15, after learning piano from his mom and dabbling with trumpet, trombone, and guitar. He primarily plays the Kubo, which you'll hear all about, a 15-string instrument co-developed along with my good friends Daniel and Michael Tobias. Kai received a Bachelor of Arts in Music degree from Berkeley College of Music and a Master of Fine Arts in Music degree from California Institute of the Arts. He's been involved in all kinds of creative projects, working with various bands, playing everything from rock, pop, and jazz to progressive metal and electronic music. He currently makes his home in LA. This is his first time on For Bass Players Only. Welcome, Kai. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, John.
I just touched on the early days of your musical upbringing. Where are you from originally? Are you originally from Los Angeles? We were talking before about Japan. So where did you grow up?
I was born in Japan, but majority of my life I've lived in the States. And I actually even spoke English first, so I had to learn Japanese later. So that was challenging. Basically, I was in Japan from 4 to 18. So yeah, all my real life experience and stuff really started, over here. And I really didn't fit in very much in Japan from 4 to 18 because I don't know, like the whole individuality that I started out with over here, and then, sort of the more hive mentality over there really didn't, it was a hard thing, being a kid and everything. So yeah, but now I actually really like Japan. I think I really enjoy it very much. Matter of fact, I probably would want to move to like a rural part there, retire there one day, So I really feel my roots in certain parts of Japan. But yes, overall, I am I'm Japanese people think I'm an American, and American people think I'm Japanese. That's so somewhere in the middle is me.
What do you think you are?
I think I'm an American that's Japanese.
Okay, but if I heard you right, you were in Japan until you were 18, or
4 to 18 is when I was in Japan. I was born in Japan and then moved to St. Louis, Missouri, right around the time I was 1, maybe even before that. So yeah, I really didn't understand any Japanese, or, barely said any words, but I started actually going to school, Wilson School in St. Louis, Missouri when I was 3, because my parents knew that they were going back to Japan and they wanted me to have an experience, not like an international school, just a regular school. And they went to talk to the school. And I think I ended up going to the school a year earlier than what is usually allowed. But, they saw that I could actually, speak a little. I understood things. And so I was able to experience that,
do you
as a young
remember
kid.
any of those years up until
Yeah,
18?
yeah, I do. I actually do. And of course, people's memories are all not perfect, but a lot of my friends do say that I have very good memory and I remember things, and that's why they now don't tell me stuff, because if they tell me, I'll remember it.
Okay. So at age 4, you moved back to Japan until you were 18, and then you came back over. Did you come over again with your family, or when you were 18, did you come over by yourself? Was it to go to school or what?
Yes, it was by myself, and it was for Berkeley College of Music for my bachelor's. I graduated in Japan. Graduation was March, or I think it was March, yeah. And by April, mid-April, I was in Boston already starting the summer semester. So you can see I couldn't wait to get out of Japan.
I'm just curious, who were your bass teachers at Berkeley? Whoever they were probably are probably still there now.
Right. Dave Holland. What
Dave
was it?
Holland?
No, what was his name? David Hollander? Oh gosh, I'm getting all confused.
Dave,
It's a very similar name to Dave Holland. So
Dave Clark, maybe?
no, I'm pretty sure his name was David Hollander or something like that. He played in the Boston Pops and stuff. He's an upright te guy. He played, a little electric, but he was my first teacher, I believe. I took a little bit from Joe Santerre. Is that how
Yeah.
you say his name
Joe
correctly? And
Santerre,
then
Mr. Six String.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, but at Berkeley, I played a lot, but I was actually more of arranging. I was doing like contemporary writing and production and that kind of stuff, like big band stuff and all that. So
Yes. Well, my son just graduated from Berkeley a couple of years ago, and he double majored in guitar performance and CWP, contemporary writing and production, just like you did.
oh, very good. Yeah, yeah. And then by the end, I actually graduated with professional music because midway, I wasn't digging the CWP as much, but I was, kind of already quite a bit into it, and then I figured out, there's like a build your own curriculum and stuff. And at the time, Ken Brass, I believe his name was the head of professional music, and he was great. And I don't know, I really, I really just finished up my degree doing professional music, actually.
I'm trying to think who might have been there. What generation? Was Brian Beller there at the time, or the Dream Theater guys, or
I don't think Brian Beller was there. Actually, a funny story. I think I saw him at the gym like a few years ago, actually. Uh, I'm pretty sure it was. I didn't say hi, but I didn't know him. But he's actually, I believe he's friends with one of my teachers from Cal Arts, and so I kind of knew he lived in the area, but I was really surprised to see him at the gym. Anyway. I was at Berkeley from 98 to 2002 or so. That was when
okay.
I went to school. And then I was around Boston until 2003 because I did my OPT after school as well.
Okay, well, let's go back again a little bit about we mentioned your mom and piano and guitar and trumpet. What made you gravitate to the bass, and at what age did that happen?
So let's see. I tried guitar and stuff as you mentioned, and I didn't really enjoy it as much. Just I don't know, something about the sound. Maybe it was like too twangy. And of course, a person that can't really play saying that the sound wasn't good, that's very convincing, right? But it was just yeah. And piano, I like piano. I just don't like playing piano when I play it, or and I don't know. Somehow I started playing some bass parts on the guitar I had, just like a beginner classical guitar. And I don't know, for some reason that was very fun. So I used to copy like a lot of Bon Jovi and stuff and doing some German metal as well. And that was about 15. And then when I was 15, I started doing that and I thought, wow, this is kind of fun. And after a few months, I really wanted to get a bass, at which point I got a Aria Pro 2.
Yeah.
That was my first bass. And yeah, immediately actually, I really like the warmness of the sound. I really like the low sound, but I really like sort of the sweeter melody up top kind of sound as well. And my piano background kind of kicked in, so I started working on solo bass arrangements even on a four string right away. I was playing like Over the Rainbow and stuff, like just looking at a piano score and figuring out which parts I can play. And I got actually pretty good at artificial harmonics, so I was doing a lot of that as well. And yeah, that's kind of how I started with the bass, I guess.
Did you start listening to music differently once you discovered the bass, once you embraced the bass? Did you have any musical, any bass heroes, bass influences? What players did you like? Who got your attention?
Well, as a young kid, of course, like I went through a Dream Theater phase around, like 15 to like maybe like 17 or something like that. So I really enjoyed them as a kid. And yeah, but that was, like I said, that was more of a phase at the point. And but yeah, I'm not sure if I ever really had a bass hero per se. But to answer the question, if I did hear music differently, for sure, I really heard music differently. I remember one of the records that I listened to that really got my attention, thinking like, wow, this is like the bass is so cool. It was Joan Osborne. I think Mark Egan was playing bass on it, and just just like his simple stuff, like just playing. He started with like a high A octave, like sliding into it on his fretless, and then just kind of went to a lower octave, and I don't know, it just sounded amazing, and I just went, wow, this is super special. I remember it really did change my perspective on hearing and observing music for sure.
Yeah, Mark is a great guy. In fact, I just did my most recent interview with him just a couple weeks ago.
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. But were you ever into the groovers? James Jamerson or maybe Duck Dunn, or I imagine you were into John Mayung because you mentioned we both mentioned the Dream
Right.
Theater. Anybody else come to mind?
No, not really. I mean, I did pick up, books and stuff because, back then, books or magazines were important, right? So we would learn from just reading a book or, reading like the specials in a magazine and stuff. So I learned things from there as well, especially because I wanted to go to Berkeley. So I was, kind of studying on my own and whatnot. So in that sense, I was exposed to those players and learned from that. But as a in terms of sort of a personal hero, no, no, not really. That didn't really happen for me.
So, what's keeping you busy these days, Kai?
I am playing a MTD 15 34 24, which means there's 15 strings, 34 inches, and 24 frets. That is what I've been enjoying playing. I do a lot of, I could do solo gigs, I do duos, trios, and especially before the pandemic, like, whatever gigs, like even like, larger ensembles, all of that I did actually on the MTD on the 15 string because especially if there wasn't a second guitarist, I can, fill in that part, or I can do a lot of colors and chords. And as you mentioned, I have my BFA and MFA, so I'm trained, so I can actually adapt pretty flexibly, I would say. And so yeah, I am mainly a player, but I also do some teaching. I do a little bit of online teaching and stuff. I teach at seminars as well. Like stick camps or tap seminars. I run my own seminar in Japan with my friend Toshiaki. I Yeah, it's and I'm currently working on making a bunch of videos so I can do like, I'm not sure if it'll be subscription based or how I'm gonna go about it, but like, kind of an online school stuff or yeah, like I'm figuring that out. But right now I've been shooting a lot of content for that, so that's been interesting too,
Oh,
actually.
that's great. Okay, about the MTD Kubo bass, I have maybe a million questions, but
Yes.
I'll try to condense them. Uh, how did you come up with the number 15, with the number of strings?
So I played a well, let's go back. I'll go through this really quickly. But so I was playing a four string first, of course, bass. And then, like I said, I was doing a lot of solo stuff, at which point I find out there's this thing called the six string bass, right? So I was like, ooh, let's try that. And then I was playing that for a while. And I really got into tapping on the six string bass as well, doing harmonics and everything as well. But I actually really didn't like the sound of tapping that much, to be honest. And but I still enjoyed the possibilities or what I can do with it, I guess. And then I started playing a 12 string, two regions, six bass strings, six guitar strings. The first one I got, my war guitar, was in around 2000 or 2001 or something like that. And so I started playing that, and I immediately, after, 3 days, I had my can I swear? Is shit a swear word or is that okay?
It's okay.
Okay. I had my oh shit moment after 3 days going like, wow, what did I buy? Like I really can't play this thing, And but I kept playing the thing, and I was playing, if you're familiar with how these instruments are set up, usually there's like, a treble side and then
Mhm.
there's a bass side, and people usually reach over to play the bass side with their left hand like a piano, reach over there with the right hand like a piano, play the treble.
Yeah.
And then I was playing this way, and I realized after a couple of months that there was only a dirty spot over here and right here.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, oh, this is terrible. I'm really not playing this instrument. I'm just doing stuff that I did on the bass, and there's really no point to this. At which point I actually switched my hands to actually I am right hand dominant, but I decided I'm going to play the melody and whatever else with my left hand. So the treble side being over here, I started actually doing this and playing the bass side with this hand. So if you think about a piano, I was essentially doing this. So I had to really rework my brain quite a bit. Took about 3 years at least until I started feeling like I was making some progress. Up until then, I couldn't really do anything but play things that I practice, no improvisation, no whatever. And even after 3 years, that wasn't really there. But I remember one day I was just walking back home from school and I thought, wow, the world looks different. And and then I kind of believed that, just by using your left and training different parts of your brain, it does like change your perspective on things. And I remember that day pretty vividly. As I was walking back, all the colors seemed more vivid, and I just went, "Wow, this is
Wow,
kind of incredible."
it's
Uh,
interesting. Now, Victor Wooten was showing me some stuff one time. We were at one of the Warwick base camps in Germany, and he said something to me that just makes so much sense. He said, just remember, anything the left hand can do, the right hand can do. And I never forgot that. And it is a lot easier said than done,
for sure. Yeah. So,
but
so
I want to get back to the Kubo and the tuning. I had the privilege of spending an afternoon at Emmett Chapman's house years ago, and he was explaining and he was showing me and he was showing me the different numbers of strings and the different tunings. But there was like a central core really string, and then I think these strings were tuned in fourths and these strings were tuned in fifths or something. Like I was trying to get my head around it. Is there something similar with the MTD? Because I know anything MTD builds is going to be a first class work of art. But how is
yes.
that? How is the Kubo bass tuned? Is it similar
So as
to
you
what
mentioned, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said? Is it similar to what I just described?
So as you mentioned, I started with fourths and fifths, fourths in the treble, fifths in the bass. When I switched my hands, I switched to fourths and fourths because me being a bass player, like fourths makes sense. So I actually switched that way because I felt like things I wanted to play was maybe more fitting to that, and plus my brain worked better. And for whatever reason, I just committed to that. Sometimes you just got to pick and stick to something, right? So that's what I did. And then, so in fourths, me playing a lot of six string bass, I also did a lot of playing, bass notes and simple chords on top. So I started adapting that to my right hand to playing bass on the six strings. And so I was playing basically the lowest four strings from the low B to the D, if you will. I was thinking that is one region, playing bass notes mainly there. And then the G and C was where I was playing two notes to, simplify, and then bass note to actually make a chord. So the reason why that expanded to 15 was I wanted to actually literally play at least three or four notes on top to like literally play a chord instead of just sort of an implied one, even though the bass note is there, so you are making a chord, but I wanted to be able to play like at least a three or four note chord. And so that's why I ended up getting two strings on top of what I had, the G and the C, but then the F and the B flat. So now I can actually play four note chords if I had the choice. And so the bass is actually fretless on my MTD Kubo. So from the D to the low F sharp, so fourth lower than the low B is
Right.
fretless. So that's how the 15 strings came about. So I'm thinking of it basically in three regions. I'm thinking six melody or treble, five bass, and then four chords, if you will, basically.
Okay, wow. Is it, just so I understand, part of it is fretless and part of it's not, but is it, you said the low F sharp, is that the lowest string, the F sharp?
Yes, the low F sharp is the lowest. A 148 is on there. By
That's
Lavella Strings, I'm using their white nylons, and that sounds incredible, actually.
wow. Okay. And but is anything else fretless other than where that one string is?
So the F sharp to the D is fretless.
The F
So
sharp
I
goes
have
through the
basically
D.
five fretless strings
I see.
on it, and the reason for that is because I'm not a big I said before that I didn't like the sound of tapping. One of the big things I didn't like was the thick bass string hitting a fret. That was something I really didn't enjoy. And so I always played a lot of fretless bass as well, so I didn't have the fear too much, except I wasn't sure if I was able to pull that off, doing multiple things. And I did that on one of my previous instruments, and I thought, you know what, I think I can pull this off. And so that's how I actually ended up playing more fretless bass, even when playing like tapping or with the Kubo. So that's why it's fretless. And actually, this is going a little further, but I also ended up developing my own technique now where I actually fret and pluck in one hand. So now I actually, if I will get something in the future, it will be all fretted because now I can actually play regular bass, like regular bass now with one hand actually.
What about the design process and the production? Were you working with both Daniel and Michael, or was there somebody else, or how, who was were you bouncing ideas off of each other, or did you already know what you want, or did they have an idea, or how did all that come together?
So I met Michael at the amp shop, Bass Exchange, when they were still in the Sherman Oaks. I think that was Sherman Oaks area. When they were in their previous location, I just happened to meet him,
Well,
and
that was a long time ago.
yeah, it was when was that? Yeah, it was a long time ago.
It's
And
that shop
I
on Cahuenga,
it was a Woodman or
a
something like
Woodman.
that
Okay,
on like Ventura
okay.
Boulevard.
I used to live near there. I used to go to Jerry's Famous Deli.
Okay. Yeah, but I was picking up an instrument that needed repairs. It was a 12 string archtop archback, the white one you see on my in the back actually. But Tina at the amp shop did an amazing job fixing it for me, and I was picking it up, and it just so happens Michael Tobias was there, just dropping off stuff. I wasn't about to go say hi or anything, but the guys at the shop actually called him over and was like, "Hey, meet this guy." And I played for him unplugged actually at the spot, and he was very nice to me. He was like, "Wow, that sounds great." And you know, fast forward however many years, he actually said that he'll build me an instrument. And by then I had an idea I wanted a 15 string just because I thought that would be my physical limit. I mean, past that, I don't think there would have been much reason other than just adding strings at that point. So I wanted something that can play really low, but I wanted something that I can also play chords on. And then with the treble, my left hand, my lead line, I knew six strings was enough. I didn't really need to add in another lower seven string or anything. And so that's how the 6, 5, and 4 idea came about. I needed fretted, fretless, fretted, three outputs plus the one GK output. So there's four outputs. I needed mono switches to make it easy for solo gigs or trade shows because in NAMM, if I walk up to a booth and up until then I was always like, oh, I need two inputs, and everybody's just like, well, no, what's this guy's problem? So one of the few things that I really was adamant about was those things, and I wanted a single cut design mainly also because I play upright, if you see my videos, and I need a lot of these type of instruments end up having the control knobs or whatever in a regular position on the similar to like a regular electric bass. But then, if you really can't reach them actually, like literally. So I wanted the controls for me to be able to reach them pretty easily. So that's kind of where the single cut design comes in as well. And I just told him like those things I wanted it hollow or semi-hollow. Everything else I just kind of left up to him. I tell him what I wanted. He heard me play a little. He says I want to use these woods. I want to use these woods, and I'm
Yeah.
like, great, great. I didn't say anything.
So, how long from that first meeting until you were playing your new bass?
Oh man, the first meeting. You mean the meeting, Michael, or from when he said he'll make it?
Well, I'm just trying to get a sense of how long the whole process took back and forth.
Well, I would say well, it took years. At this point, I'm actually getting a little hazy about it, but I think it was like 5, 6, 7 years or something. Like I just waited.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was just practicing in that time. Yeah, I waited a while, and it was worth it though. I mean, for one thing, I never imagined that Michael Tobias or MTD, like would make an instrument for me. That was just something that never crossed my mind. It's still crazy that I still think about it, you know. I mean, it is just, a thing. It is just an instrument, but it represents so much more. So yeah, it's actually I'm feeling a little emotional just talking about it, which I usually don't feel about things, but it was just incredible that he said he'll do it and that it actually happened. I mean, I was just happy to wait as long as it took, basically.
Wow. And you said there's another one either in the works or being conceptualized right now, or
Conceptual, we'll see if it happens or not, but yeah, that is something that I am actually starting to be more curious, or that I'm actually thinking about, just because, as I mentioned, because I developed this new tech.
yeah.
I don't know if it's new, but I definitely, I'm not sure if I perfected it, but I definitely made it more workable and executable than probably anybody has before, in terms of playing bass with one hand and also doing like strumming and picking with one hand. Yeah, it's something where if you look at my videos or playing, you might not notice I'm doing it, because it's almost like, it's like a sleight of hand. It's almost like a magic trick, actually. Like, even I can't tell sometimes what I'm doing, actually. So,
Well, I have been enjoying a lot of your videos. A lot of times it's just you, or sometimes it's you and a drummer. And I think there was another, was there a guitar or somebody I don't know. I watched a bunch of them, so I've got your number. I know what
yeah,
you.
thank you.
I think it's awesome. Hey, I want to take this opportunity. You went to school. You've got your bachelor's. You've got your master's. As I mentioned at the beginning, For Bass Players Only is a bass instruction site, and somebody with your experience, and it's a little bit different than your traditional bass player,
Mhm.
but most of the people that are coming to For Bass Players Only are men in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I've got a couple students in their 80s. We do get
Wow.
a fair bit of women too, but the reason I say that it's not people who are career bound. They don't want to play,
Mhm.
you know, uh, sold out arenas all over the world to their adoring fans. They want to play some classic rock riffs with their buddies, or some blues shuffles, or walking bass, or a little funk R&B, whatever.
Mhm.
And I wanted to take this opportunity to ask you what advice you can impart to somebody like that who just wants to play bass for fun. Maybe they've got some time now that they didn't have before. They've always wanted to do this. They love classic rock or whatever. What do you think they should be focused on? What do you think they should be thinking about when it comes to learning bass?
Wow, that is a good question, right? And that is something I feel like I don't know if I struggle with that question, because a lot of my students that come to seminars and stuff, they play like Chapman stick or something, but in a similar situation. They have this instrument that they really enjoy, that they're passionate about, and then they want to play some music and with it. And so yeah, it's kind of, yeah, that's like a challenging question, but I would say, of course, like thinking long term usually is a good idea. Like, don't like for me, I like to set goals and work towards them very gradually, So the consistency of working on something and not getting frustrated with it is actually something that is very important, I think. And just being able to set your goals, but being comfortable moving those goals too. I feel like a lot of musicians tend to set a goal, and by the time you're there, the goal is no longer there. So just being flexible with something like that is fun. And also, don't be afraid to give yourself a pat on the back or praise yourself when you did good. Similar to, like, don't be too harsh on yourself, but be honest if you're not doing good either. It's just like it's like a lifestyle, and it is a simpler, calmer, more patient lifestyle, I believe, that working on music, on a craft, does bring. So that's more of a general thing, I guess. But through that, I think people can really enjoy and learn how to enjoy music or how to enjoy the craft of it, you know? So I think just yeah, just the patience of it all, I think is probably pretty important, you know.
Very well said. I love the idea of setting goals and working toward achieving them. The only thing I would add to that is to make sure they are the right goals. Because when I was, I don't know, 17 years old, I was not asking the right questions or aiming toward what, looking back, what I really should have been aiming for. I was trying to cop Stanley Clark licks and Jocko licks and, later Billy Sheehan or whoever it was. And that stuff is fine if somebody wants to learn that. But unless you're going to be a solo artist, well, even those guys can take care of business also. And that's what it's really about. So now I say, set the goal of locking in with the drummer and setting the foundation for the band and making the music feel good and your attack and your release. Those are the kind of goals that I try to instill in people, not how to play a bazillion 16th notes and at 100 miles an hour. So I really
Right.
appreciate what you said, and I thank you for that. What about anything in the future that you haven't already mentioned? Is there something else that maybe you've always wanted to do, or someday I'm going to, or one of these days?
Well, like this, well, uh, I'm breaking the flow here a little bit, but is that okay?
Sure.
So you said this is going to be edited, right? So you can decide if you want to leave this in there, I guess. Is that, sorry, I'm just like asking right now all of a sudden, but
Take a chance, Kai. What do you got?
so like I said, this is kind of weird maybe, especially because I have two hands and I can choose to use the two hands the way that I want to. But like I said, I really feel like I can actually teach somebody with basically one hand to play regular bass and sound like a regular bass player with the technique that I worked out of fretting and plucking, like just doing both of that in one hand. Of course, slap bass would be something I can't pull off with just one hand, but in terms of that, like I really feel like, just this actually playing bass and sounding like a regular bass player with one hand is something that can really be used with people with two hands or even one hand. And I feel like that is something that I would really like to actually expand on, just in terms of thinking of, like a drummer, like, like a drummer is kind of expected to do all these things on a drum set, like if you will, almost play multiple parts at once. And I feel like with my technique and the way that I've actually worked it out, like, yeah, there's definitely more that can be done from in perspective of, Chapman stick or even regular bass or regular guitar, or even people that, just have like basically one hand can actually function as a regular bass player, because there is a certain sound that you are required, right, as a professional musician when you play something. And I think that's what I struggled with quite a bit playing like a war guitar or Chapman stick or even Kubo, because it'll sound different and the drummer's like, you know what, I really want just like this driving, digging in rock bass or something. And you usually need two hands to do it, but I actually had to figure out how to do that with one hand. And I've been pretty successful actually over the years. And so that is something that I would like to see uh, people do a little more actually, because I think it's actually something that hasn't been explored enough.
Are you saying, I think I heard you say for people who only have one hand, or not necessarily? Because I know Ravel wrote a piano concerto for left hand for a friend who lost his arm in the war. I interviewed a guy, I can't remember his name. He was from Michigan. He was a bass player, and he lost his right arm in a factory accident. And he has a hook, but he doesn't use his right hand at all. He just taps with his left hand, and he plays some pretty nasty grooves. The guy from Def Leppard, the drummer, who lost his arm. So are you talking about people like that, or are you just saying there's so much more you can do with one hand that people don't even realize that you think that is worthy of a instruction in and of itself?
I'm talking about both actually. But I feel like because it is so hard to, because it, well, I believe I can teach somebody to do what I do in a shorter time than it took me to do it, of course, because I figured it out. But it's still pretty hard that I almost feel like most people with two hands won't be interested in what I can do. Like my technique in my right hand and left hand is actually pretty different. Like they can do different things, and yeah, a lot of things I can do in my right hand I cannot do in my left. And that's by design because I designed it so they sound different. But yes, I feel like, and I said, so tapping, like tapping on a bass has its sound, right? But if you're gonna do that in like a pop session, nobody wants like a tapping bass sound in a pop session. That's what I'm talking about. But if with my technique, you know, you can actually play, it'll sound like, like you're playing regular bass actually.
Wow, that is fascinating. You're a good person, you know that?
So I don't know, but that's something that I would like to actually get into, and I've yeah, even like, like even with the tapping thing, right? You could make even like beginner people like teach them some simple things, almost like, like handbell kind of stuff or something, and then have people play like certain parts, but with like five, six people make out a whole part, that kind of a thing, right? So I feel like I have sort of all these extended knowledge of how to do that with many people in an ensemble setting as well, because a lot of the Chapman Stick students I have will be like, beginners or intermediate, but I'll get them together and we'll actually have them play two hands and make like, just like a music ensemble kind of stuff, So
That's
anyway.
I'm getting the impression that you're always thinking about something and that your mind never really shuts off. Is that a pretty accurate description of?
Probably, yes. Yeah, it's tiring. It's tiresome sometimes, but that's just how the way it goes, I guess.
What would you be if you were not a bass player? Something outside of music.
Something outside of music. I've always wanted to be a writer when I was a kid, actually, like write stories and stuff. So that might be somewhere around there. Yeah, I could have maybe I guess maybe a chef. I actually really enjoy cooking. That's one of my favorite things. I would say 95% of meals I actually cook. Even if I have a gig, I'll actually cook and take my own lunchbox and stuff. I've done that since college years. Like I've always cooked my own food and took it with me. That's just yeah, I enjoy it. It's calming, it's relaxing that moment you're just cooking, and it's simple. And you said something outside of music, but it's very similar to music. You just have ingredients, you improvise, you do the thing. Sometimes it tastes good, sometimes it doesn't, and but you take it in and you move on to the next day.
Well, if you do that or the writing or anything, I wish you well. I know you're going to do well, but I hope you'll keep on doing the music and playing the bass and your MTD Kubo and whatever else comes along. And you've opened it up for a follow-up interview as well. So if you'd be open to that, next time you have some big-time far-out news to share with us, and I know you will, let me know and we'll share it with our audience.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, there's so many things out there, right? And oh yeah, and I was actually I wanted to ask you, like you said, I actually have personal experience with Mr. Emmett Chapman as well. So you went over there to interview him about stick and stuff, or what was
Yeah, I
the
went over with my son and his wife Utah was there, and she
Mhm.
was bringing us coffee and stuff. She was very very nice, and his whole he didn't have a whole factory in the house, but he had a room and he had other people working there. He had been in that house for many years,
Yeah.
and he was just showing us and answering questions and showing us different models and demonstrating technique. And I did do an interview with him there, and he had somebody else come over. Grace Graber, I'm trying to remember his name. He
Oh,
was
Tom. Yeah, yeah. I don't know him personally, but yes.
more of a guitar player, but you bring up another point. The Chapman stick, for some reason, had the bass players gravitate to it. There's nothing that I can see that's more of a bass about that than a guitar. It's just a really cool instrument with a really wide range. So
Yes.
bass then becomes a function rather than a range, if you will. Because like
Right.
you play the groove. I don't think we've
Mhm.
even used that word in this conversation, but lay it down, play the root of the chord, play the chords, and then play the whatever you want on top, the melody or the solo or anything like that. But yeah, it was a fascinating experience. He was a very, very nice man. And
Mhm.
like I said earlier, I was very privileged to have known him. And I had interviewed him actually online years before. I think it was shortly after I had launched for Bass Players Only. But the visit I'm talking about was, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, 4, 5, 6. I don't even remember. I can't keep track of how many years ago was that?
Of course. Oh, so this was the Woodland Hills house.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
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 And there's a go. Do you know Greg Howard? He
Yes.
was like his right arm, his assistant. I don't know what his title is, but he was my contact person for a lot of that stuff too.
Okay.
But yeah, Chapman is great, but we don't want to forget MTD, Michael and Daniel Tobias. I have two 5-string basses that Michael made for me also. One is a fretless,
Oh, okay.
and I just love them both. They are my prized possessions. Love them very much. And I got my first one in the '80s, and I was guilty as anyone playing way down there where I wasn't supposed to. I'd be doing like a wedding or something. I'd be like, so you have to play them with some sense of responsibility for what the song needs and what the music needs. And
Always, always, right?
yeah, well, I don't do that anymore, but hey, cut me some slack. It was 35 years ago, and the novelty of the whole, 5-string, 6-string craze and all of that stuff.
Right.
But
MTDs are incredible for
they
sure.
are. It's such a joy talking to you, Kai. Thank you very much. I wish you much luck and continued success. I hope we'll meet in person again. Oh, we did meet in person at the NAMM show. I hope we meet in person again soon and often.
Yes, thank you, John, for having me. And yeah, please, people, if you are interested, follow me on the socials. It's easy. Find me, just my name, Kai Kurosawa. My website is happysad.org. And yeah.
Yeah, and there's great stuff on there. I speak from personal experience. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now at ForBassPlayersOnly.com, there are thousands of people, a lot of them over 50 in the For Bass Players Only community, learning bass and having the time of their life playing the music that they love. Come join them and see what it's like to experience that incredible transformation for yourself. Remember, you're never too old to groove, so let's play bass. I'll see you all right here next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, I'll say it one more time. Let's play bass.